Today, I'm gonna answer all of your questions, like how I met my boyfriend and if I wore makeup to school. I am Mattis, I make men's beauty content and talk about how to enhance masculine features with makeup. If this is something you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and say hi in the comments and we'll get right into it. Now, you had a lot of questions, so I'm not sure how long this video will take, but make sure to grab a drink and we'll relax. Let's start with a makeup related question, and this one is, how do you determine which features to accentuate and which ones to minimize? I think in the past, I often had the want and need to sort of fit in, and that I replicated with my makeup as well. And to some degree, I still have this urge and probably will always have the urge to sort of replicate, models' features and try to really maximize one's looks and appearance to sort of fit the standard. And the standard with social media, of course, is really high, especially in the gay scene. You're constantly surrounded by beautiful people. You always feel the pressure to keep up with that. So there is definitely the want and need to align one's self with those standards. I remember in the past, I used Face app, that app that sort of visually transforms your face in photos. It gives you like that bold glamour filter essentially. And I took a photo with that and then with makeup tried to replicate those features exactly. And you can really see where that stems from, that sort of want and need to really maximize one's look. And to some degree that can be fun and helpful and it can work. But yeah, basically the question of what you want to accentuate in your face, it's a tricky one, and it comes down to experience, it comes down to trial and error, and it comes down to personal preference. I had many different eras with my look. I had eras where I made my lips look a lot bigger. I had eras where I contoured really, really harshly or made myself super, super dark bronzy, or I shaved off the tails of my eyebrows, or I even had a phase where I put on eyelash extensions, like little singular hair, and tried to literally reshape my eyebrows with those little sort of eyelash extensions. And it took me like half an hour. It was really obsessive, to be very honest. But looking back, it's also a bit funny. I think I had so many different phases. At the end of the day, you gotta take it with a grain of salt. I think that whole trying to better oneself and trying to look better and feel better and everything, I think it can be very fun. It can be creative in some ways. But, it can also be quite obsessive. But I'm realizing how I'm really, really rambling. Essentially, look at your face and look at what slightly stands out. Look at what makes your face special. I mean, you probably already know this. There's probably something about you that people have complimented you on in the past. Maybe you have really voluptuous, beautiful lips. Maybe you have a really interesting, beautiful character nose. Like those Roman noses, they're so beautiful to look at and I really, really love them. Maybe you have really upturned eyes, or maybe you have really downturned eyes. Maybe you have really bushy, full brows like I do, or maybe you have really light brows. Now, it doesn't have to be something that we deem classically beautiful according to societal standards. It can be anything. It can even be you have really red cheeks from rosacea or something. Anything about your face that sort of stands out just a little bit. And even if you don't like that feature, you can sort of try to reframe it and maybe see it in a slightly more positive light. Like the downturned eyes, for example. I think they're beautiful. They add so much interesting character to a face. And we are sort of in the era of looks maxing and hunter eyes and, comparing ourselves to those perfect proportions. But I think actually going after those images and really replicating them so perfectly, I think it often ends up looking a bit funny. I think of my eyebrows that I used to always shave off the ends off and used to try to really make them look completely straight, like those models' eyebrows. Looking back, I don't think it really suited my face shape that well because, there's shadows, there's different shapes. If your eyebrows are quite downturned and sort of go lower, your eyes probably also go slightly lower and your bone structure also goes a little bit lower in that way. So if you then suddenly try to really lift up your brows, it doesn't align with the rest of your bone structure and anatomy. In that way, it doesn't really work to completely replicate that sort of bold glamour, perfect model face filter, or even that hunter eye look. Not everyone has hunter eyes and not everyone needs hunter eyes. There's a very small percentage of people on the planet that have those set of eyes and those set of features. But there's so many gorgeous, beautiful, attractive men that have completely opposite features. Think of Jacob Elordi, who has really, really downturned eyes And people are crazy about him. There's men with really, really thin lips that look incredibly hot. There's men with really soft features that look stunning. There's men with really big noses that look so, so hot. So we can learn a lot about these features and we can try to replicate those. And there's nothing wrong with it. But you can just try playing with it and sort of picking and choosing what you want to accentuate and what you want to slightly pull back. At the end of the day, and this is something I'm learning, it's really not that deep. We don't need to be so perfect about it. We can just have fun with it. Even if you think of dark circles can be so hot. And meanwhile, there's definitely a guy somewhere out there that's so ashamed of his dark circles and thinks that he looks tired all the time, when actually he's gorgeous. And his dark circles make his face even more interesting. So yeah, this is my really rambly answer to that question, and let's move on to the next one. Do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend? Yes, I have a boyfriend. We've been together for 2.5 years now, I think. I would have to do the math. But yeah, I am in a relationship, and a really, really happy one. And yeah, my boyfriend is incredible. And I might answer some more questions about him later. Next question. Does cost matter when doing makeup? And this is interesting. I think it definitely used to matter a long time ago, like many years ago, when it came to formulas in drugstore makeup and high-end makeup. There was just a huge difference. And I think the difference nowadays is more so the packaging and the quality of packaging. And I can only really speak generally, but generally speaking, high-end makeup tends to have higher quality packaging that just lasts longer over the years. And that really isn't always the case, sadly. It should be, but sometimes there are exceptions, and sometimes there is luxury packaging that breaks easily. But I feel like with drugstore makeup, that's so often the case. I so often buy a compact, like a powder compact, a blush compact from the drugstore, and the packaging after a few uses just falls apart. And I say that as someone who actually really enjoys drugstore makeup. And also there definitely are exceptions. And also just not everyone can and want to afford luxury makeup. I completely understand. And you definitely don't have to, because in reality, the formulas at the drugstore have come such a long way. And formula-wise, I think the quality sometimes really aligns. And there's definitely not always a need to spend the money on luxury makeup. But if you are like me and you just enjoy the sensation, the whole experience of having beautiful products on your table. You know, a beautiful weighted Dior concealer in glass packaging, or these incredible sticks by Westman Atelier with all the rich detail, the magnetic closure, everything about it just feels amazing. And on a day-to-day basis, I just love being surrounded by those really beautiful to look at and amazing feeling items. The way I see it, it's almost decor or art that we get to interact with in a practical way on a daily basis. There's so many aspects to luxury makeup though, and like I said, it is a luxury, it is not necessary, and there are amazing formulas at the drugstore. So if you would like me to do a video on those, I'm happy to do so. Next question, how did you go about discovering your true... Oh, that is a deep one. How did you go about discovering your true self? It's a very personal journey, but is there any applicable advice you feel you can offer? I feel like I can offer some advice for sure, because I have gone through many years of therapy. The question of finding oneself, I think, is quite philosophical. I don't think that's something... I don't think I've found myself necessarily. I don't know what it means necessarily that I have found myself. But I feel like I have come a long way in knowing what I love and knowing how I operate and structuring my day around how I operate and what I love to do. You know, I used to think that I need a proper job. I need to work in a field where I can make lots of money in a very traditional way. And I definitely still have a lot of ambition, but I no longer want to sort of put myself into that very close-minded box. And I still put myself under pressure in that way somewhat, but I now understand that if I want to achieve something, I need to do it in a way that suits me and that suits my personality type. And I have ADHD, and I've gone through years and years of therapy because I had really low self-esteem and just didn't know how to be in this world. But yeah, you sort of learn to just work with what you have, with your resources. You learn to be more resourceful and to appreciate sort of the hidden superpowers you have. I know that I am very creative. I know that I love being on camera. I know that I love being surrounded by beautiful things like luxury makeup. And I know that I can talk about it at length. So this is my superpower. So this is what I choose to spend my time with. Does that equate to knowing oneself? I guess so. I guess actually it's that simple. Just understanding oneself, what one is passionate about, what one is afraid of, what one doesn't want to do at all. There's many things I absolutely hate doing. To be very honest, anything bureaucratic is something that kind of scares me and something that I always push away from me as far as possible and procrastinate on for days and weeks and months. And I also often go between extremes of high productivity and then being wiped out for days. I think it's very typical ADHD that you go from these extremes, that you sometimes feel paralyzed and you literally can't move and don't want to move. And now I just understand that more and I give myself time and I let myself indulge and I let myself be in that paralyzed state and just take care of myself when I need it. But most of my life I was in jobs or in positions where I just couldn't do that because I needed to be somewhere. So I couldn't really live authentically like that. Whereas at the moment I can. And that's one of the reasons I always wanted to be a content creator, because I can just like live in my rhythm. I can be in those really obsessive creative phases when I'm in that state, and I can also rest and recover when I really need that. So no idea if I just answered your question or not, but yeah, that's what we're going with. What books do you like to read? Your favorite author? Someone asked a question about music. Okay, let's start with books. I go through phases with reading. I love reading, but a lot of the time I'm in a very sort of adrenaline hyper state. Like I go to the gym, I film, I edit, and then when I rest and recover, I'm sort of wiped out and I just watch something on Netflix, to be very honest. Whereas to read, I need to be in a much more sort of level-headed, calm state of mind. And when I am there, I really, really love it. But at the moment, it just doesn't happen as much. Saying that, I love reading and I'm very into Lord of the Rings. I have been for a long time. I love Lord of the Rings. I could watch videos on it for hours and hours and hours. I listen to the music all the time. It's actually my Spotify sort of wrapped list. On the first spot is literally Lord of the Rings, which is hilarious. You know, I constantly listen to that elven music. And I'm currently reading The Silmarillion, which is by Tolkien, who's the author of Lord of the Rings. And it's sort of the history of how Middle-earth was created and sort of the way everything unfolded. And I really, really love it. It's my safe space. It's my comfort space. When I am really sort of in this crazy zone, I calm myself down by listening to elven music, which is hilarious. I just love the style. I just love the whole fashion, the whole like architecture, elven architecture I'm so into. You know, if I could decorate a house in that style, I would be so, so happy. A lot of what you see in the movie in terms of the elven interior design and architecture is actually inspired by Art Nouveau or Jugendstil, which is my favorite architecture style. It's sort of these organic shapes. Everything is very intricate. In terms of music, I am sort of two-faced. I have that side that loves a very calming sort of style of music. I love Enya, for example. I love a bit of harp music. I love a bit of classical music. I love a bit of opera. But on the other side, I quite like something quite dark, electronic. I love TRST, Trust, who's one of my favorite musicians. I love Cobra, that style of music, FK Twigs. Everything that's sort of slightly atmospheric, dark, electronic, but usually with vocals. That's what I'm sort of into. Oh yeah, next question. I love the decor I see in your background. Do you go for a particular look aesthetic? And yes, I kind of answered part of that already. I love Jugendstil, Art Nouveau, but I also love a sort of royal theme. As you can probably tell, I love that sort of Louis XIV, French 17th, 18th century style. But I also love modernity. I'm not adverse to modernity. I like minimalism as well. So if I were to decorate a house from scratch, I would definitely have a lot of that minimalism in terms of empty spaces and very little clutter. But I would add a lot of personality and warmth with some French antiques, for example, or lots of silver and gold, but I also love jewel tones, so very rich colors like dark red, burgundy, dark green, sort of these emerald jewel tones. I also live in Vienna and I'm very inspired by this city. I feel like the architecture here is just gorgeous, you know, that very old European style. That's very much my style. I love it. But I would always want to combine it with some lightness, you know? I don't want clutter. I don't want rooms to feel heavy. I would want a lot of space and empty space and really combine those two worlds. Okay, next question. Your coming out story, please. Okay, so I came out quite late. I mean, you shouldn't really say that because everyone has their own like timeline in these things. And I came out at 20 years old when I lived in Vienna. So I lived in the countryside in Austria and then moved to Vienna, which is a much bigger city. And I feel like there's more inclusivity here, there's more queer people here. And still, I was quite in a bubble, so I wasn't really surrounded by a lot of queer people the first few years when I lived in Vienna. So it took me a long time to come out. And the way I came out, the first person I came out to was quite funny because I randomly one night on a night out met this girl on a subway. I think she commented on my outfit. I was wearing something she found curious, so we started talking randomly in a subway while I was on a night out. And we randomly decided to like go out together. So my friends and I and her, we joined up and we just went on a night out. And it ended up being just her and myself on some random park bench in Vienna. And I told her that I'm into men, and she was the absolute first person I ever told. And she was actually the person because I just didn't have any gay people in my surroundings. So I didn't know how to meet them. I didn't know where to go, what clubs or bars there are. And she actually mentioned a gay club here in Vienna. And even though I was so drunk, I sort of remembered the name of that gay club. So a week or so later, I literally got drunk by myself and I went to that gay club alone. And I met new people and I made friends, and that's sort of how everything started. And then I came out to friends and my parents. My parents took it well. They were not really surprised. They sort of knew it because, I mean, with me, I feel like you could just tell. It definitely did take them a little bit of a time to adjust, but they were loving and understanding, and we have an amazing relationship. I'm really, really close with my family. They are everything to me. I really, really love them, and I'm really grateful to them that they accept me and love me. And yeah, it's a big blessing, and I'm really grateful for that I can really be myself with my family, which I know not everyone can be. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things that not everyone can be 100% themselves in their family. And on a daily basis, I'm still straight passing a lot of the times. And most of the time, I'm very safe. But there are a lot of people that are not. I think transphobia is just completely insane because it's not harming anyone. Let people do their thing. Let people be who they are. It's not healthy for anyone. It's not helping anyone if people have to suppress who they really are inside. It's always so much blaming other people for one's own misery, which is just insane. Just take care of your own business and let people live. I think as gay men especially, it's horrible that other gay men judge and hate on trans people. I actually learned so much from trans people because years ago, there was no one talking about how to enhance masculine features in a face with makeup. And what did I do as a little boy? I looked up videos by trans men that did their makeup in a way that really enhances their masculinity. And this is something I still highly, highly recommend if you want to learn to bring out those features in your face. Look up those videos. Trans men have figured it all out. They know how to make their brows look really masculine and powerful, how to really carve out their bone structure, how to contour in masculine ways. They know it all, and I've actually learned so much from them. So yeah, my coming out story, it wasn't perfect. I definitely had some uncomfortable moments, but it's nothing compared to people who are trans, to people that are not safe at home. And I'm really, really blessed, really, really lucky, and eternally grateful that I'm surrounded by such amazing, loving, and accepting people. Okay, next question. How do you recommend male presenting folks get over hesitation to try makeup? I think it's actually really silly to think that makeup has a gender. It's actually the same thing as with perfume. Do you think that a specific ingredient, like a specific spice, like cardamom or even roses, do you think those things have genders? Do you think they are either masculine or feminine? It's completely dumb. It's completely stupid. And makeup is the same thing. It's like clothing. Fabric has no gender. You can wear whatever you want. You can do whatever you like. You can just be creative and follow your inner desires. And I know I always talk about how to enhance masculine features in a face, but that's just because that's what I like to do on my own face. I definitely had so many different eras where I brought out the more feminine features in my face, or I just didn't even consider if something made me look more masculine or feminine or whatever. Let yourself play, let yourself be a child with colors. It really is just a piece of paper. Your face is like a piece of paper, and makeup is like pencils. And you can just enhance the way you look. You can make yourself feel amazing, and you can start small. The way I started was because of a problem I had, because I had really severe acne and I wanted to cover it up. So I tried a bunch of concealer and my love for makeup just grew and grew from there. I would say if you have hesitation, just give yourself some grace. Don't judge yourself for it, because I know the world can be a dark place and everything about us can be judged. But yeah, just play, have fun, start slowly, and in a way just care less. I mean, it's not that deep. What are your dreams, goals in life or with the channel? I always wanted to be a content creator. I always wanted to be a YouTuber, and I also always dreamed of creating my own world in terms of my own space, in terms of aesthetics, sort of a place, a brand, something where I can just be creative and create things. Now, I'm not saying that I'm working on a brand, but even in terms of collaborations, I think it would be so fun to collaborate with a brand like Serge Lutens, a perfume brand, or even a makeup brand like Make Beauty or Charlotte Tilbury. To create my own product would be such a joy. But yeah, to be honest, my biggest dream is just to do this, to be able to create content, to just film videos and put them out there, and for someone to watch them and to interact with and to create a connection. That is what I always dreamed of. And I also want to build a house one day. Not really build, but decorate, like really start from scratch with the decorating process and just create a whole universe within a house. Just create a beautiful sanctuary. I would love to have a spa. I know those things sound a bit insane, a bit far distant, but you know, dream big. So that's what I would say. And I also always dreamed of having a boyfriend and having love in my life, and that is very much the case. So yeah, I luckily manifested that one. What celebrity do you look up to and why? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I have to say, not really a specific person comes to mind. I think there's definitely people whose style I admire and love, but I'm kind of taking celebrities with a grain of salt, because you don't know what will come out about someone in a few months' time, and then you completely change your mind about them. I think meeting one's idols can be a dangerous thing. I think you can be disappointed by some of them. So there's not really a specific person I massively look up to. But actually, I will say I really admire Serge Lutens, who created the brand Serge Lutens, which is a perfume house. And he's also a photographer and a creative director and all sorts of things. And he's incredible in terms of the creativity and the artistry and the whole universe and world that he created. You know, the perfumes are some of my favorites in the world, and all of them are so richly tied to references, to storytelling. They're just really exciting and beautiful perfumes. And the boutiques, if you ever get the chance, you have to check them out. If you ever get the chance to go to Paris, there's the Serge Lutens boutique at the Palais Royal, and it's one of my favorite places in Paris. I always visit there. You can try some of the most exquisite perfumes, and also it's just a beautiful space that he himself, I believe, had decorated. And there's a few stores around the world, but that is one of my favorite places. And he's not really a celebrity in the sort of Hollywood way that we think of when we think of celebrities, but you know, in the perfume world, he very much is a celebrity. Have you ever tried drag makeup? And I don't know if I have. I have done a Halloween look that was a very feminine look. Would I call it drag? Maybe. When I think of drag, I think of something that is really camp and more accentuated than what I did. I just really feminized my face and I wore a wig. So I guess you can call that drag. I created this look last year at Halloween, where I sort of turned myself into this nymph, sort of lady of the lake, and I just really made my skin really glowing and even. I had some individual fake lashes. I had this sort of silver wig. Oh, it was also inspired by The Last Unicorn, if you ever watched that. But yeah, that was really, really fun to do. I will say that I get easily overstimulated, and having the lashes, the wig, the dress, Everything sort of felt a little bit uncomfortable, but I was also really feeling myself. And when I had some drinks, I was really, really feeling the fantasy. And that was really, really fun. But yeah, that was actually the only time I tried full-on drag. So we'll definitely need to do it again sometime. Okay, let me ask 2 questions. What kind of music do you like? And what's your favorite color and why? Well, I already answered the music question. So in terms of color, there's many colors that I like. I already talked about loving jewel tones. I love, you know, those rich cranberry ruby shades, sapphires. But I think if I had to choose one color, it would be sort of a deep emerald green, sort of a bluey, foresty, deep, gorgeous green. That would be my favorite. Next question. Are you gay? Yes. Next question. Growing up, did you wear makeup to school? I did probably wear some concealer. I had this sort of acne concealer. I think it was from Vichy or La Roche-Posay. It didn't match me at all. I think it was very orange. Yeah, that I think I wore that probably sometimes, but I don't think it looked good. And if I could go back in time, I would just take myself shopping and I would buy myself some. That would be a fun video. What would I buy myself, my teenage self, to get through school looking and feeling a bit more confidence? I think that'd be a fun video to do. Let me know if you want to see that. But yeah, I probably did wear a little bit of concealer in high school, but I didn't do any blush or anything like that. That happened much later in life. Okay, last question. How did you meet your boyfriend? I met my boyfriend when I was still living in London, and we sort of stalked each other on social media, and we started messaging on Instagram, and it sort of went from there. I have to say, I used to be very anxious attachment. I used to be really, really nervous when it came to dating, and I would have full-on anxiety attacks. And that was actually something I went to therapy because London dating really messed me up. I mean, I think I was already messed up before I started dating in London. But essentially, I would always go into dating expecting the worst and expecting that people would hate me. I think it's very common in the gay world, but it's also very common for ADHD people or neurodivergent people in general. There's this intense fear of rejection that seems to take over. And when you're in the state of that emotion, you just can't really act authentically. You can't relax. And I definitely had some of that. On the other hand, I also had a lot of fun dating. I also really enjoyed it. But yeah, I was always going between these extremes. And when I started dating my boyfriend, I also had these panic attacks. But because of therapy, I sort of started to be able to heal from that trauma that I had. And I started feeling more safe in myself. But also he contributed a lot to that because he really made me feel safe. He's an incredible person. I actually don't talk about him that much on social media because, you know, it's something really sacred to me. So to some degree, I want to keep the privacy. But because he's also in social media, I feel like it can be really fun and exciting to just share parts of the relationship. And yeah, I'm happy to do that, but within reason. We started dating, that was like 2.5 years ago. We met in a cafe here when I was visiting Vienna. And at that point, I had actually decided to move back to Vienna because London was just sort of getting too crazy for me. It was getting too expensive. I was not really happy there. So I had actually decided to move back to Vienna. And it really perfectly coincided with us getting to know each other and hanging out together. Then I fully moved here, and it was only a month later that we made things official. And yeah, now we're here. I'm afraid this is all we have time for today, but this was really, really fun. And I'm gonna do this again at some point soon. So feel free to ask me your questions below. I'm really so grateful to all of you because I am now able to monetize on YouTube, and it's so exciting. It's always been my dream. If you want to find out where this channel takes us, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bisous bisous, yours truly.